And the Oscar goes to.
And the Oscar goes to
Tommy Lee Jones,
Jamie Foxx,
Forrest Whitaker.
Matthew McConaughey.
Okay, so, at the 88th Academy Awards, this happened.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
After spending his entire career being denied Hollywood's most prestigious award, this A-lister finally gets the win that decades of memes foretold. The audience rejoiced, the internet exploded, and while his Oscar was getting engraved, the man of the evening said, "So, you do this every year? I wouldn't know." But that's all it is, right? His unending obsession with clawing his way to an Oscar it's just a joke. He doesn't actually care as much as nerds on the internet like to pretend he does, right? But what if I told you that this moment right here is the primary driving force of his entire career? This is how Leo won. First, let's take a step back. It's the mid-70s and you're doing what all people did to entertain themselves before the internet. You're outside watching strangers do stuff. You're at some kind of hippie performance thing and someone catches your eye. It's a baby and it's doing some kind of dance. Is it good? No, it's a baby. They're not good at anything. And yet you're fascinated, as are other members of the crowd. You applaud, you cheer, you consider what accolades this baby might deserve. You don't realize it at the time, but you've just become the first fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. Leo's early upbringing is shrouded in some mystery. He's a pretty private person, so most of what we know about his childhood comes from either press interviews during Oscar campaigns or from tabloid researchers, and both of those are suspect sources. What we do know is his parents divorced when he was an infant, but lived next to each other in order to focus on baby Leo. His mom was a secretary and his dad published comic books. At some point, he saw his stepbrother get a check for $50,000 for doing a commercial, and according to him, that was what made him want to be an actor. So he works on this for a while, and eventually he decides that high school just isn't for him, and he asks his mom to take him to auditions instead of classes. And so she, like any mother would, says, "Yeah, okay." Leo claimed they really needed the money, but he had no agent and had a stretch of over a year without being cast in anything, so one might question why adolescent Leo keeps going to auditions when Dairy Queen is hiring. In fact, after his lengthy drought, he wanted to quit, but his dad said no and continued screening scripts for him. And then finally, he was cast in a 1990 pilot based on the film The Outsiders, which starred his future bro J.R. Ferguson. This was the final struggle Leo would face for the rest of his career. After several TV appearances and growing acclaim within the industry, Leo broke into film with the critically panned Critters 3, and he hated it. To be fair, Critters 3 is absolute garbage, but he was a 16-year-old and just got second billing in his first movie ever. But all these years later, in hindsight, Leo still hates the movie and hates how boring his role was. He's embarrassed to have it on his record, it just wasn't good enough. But without Critters 3, he might not have gotten an audition for This Boy's Life, where Robert De Niro looked at a hallway full of children and went, that one. Leo, immediately taking advantage of his big break, would invite his buds to set and screw around. He'd been building a reputation for being a bit of a nuisance for a while, ever since getting kicked off of a set at age 5.
And finally, I was too much to handle, so they completely kicked me off the show.
You were 86th. You were tossed. You were adios.
I was adios.
So This Boy's Life director Michael Caton-Jones sat him down and taught him the hard truth. You can be an asshole in your free time, but you have to have some respect on set. And it seemed to get through to him. Leo would put in the work and act professionally while shooting, and he'd wait patiently until after the day was done to have Alan Thicke help him sneak into dressing rooms to find the contact information of an extra he thought was hot. You know, like professionals do. But all of that led him to one of the most important films of his career, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Also known as the film referenced when people want to flex their movie knowledge and say, you know, personally, I think Leo should have won for Gilbert Grape. Now, I don't think Leo at this point in his career was choosing roles based on the Oscars. Young Leo was really into a certain type of character. This is a character who is a troubled teen who suffers a lot. Maybe they're even a criminal, but you know that deep down, they've got a heart of gold. Now that's great for getting Leo to appeal to the teenage girl demographic, but what about the demographic that wants to date teenage girls? Well, to appeal to the Academy, he's going to have to soften this type of character, make him less rough and way more sad. Don't get me wrong, Arnie Grape was definitely well within his preferred wheelhouse, but he could not have picked a better time to play this character. Arnie has autism? Somewhere on the spectrum, maybe? It's not really explicitly defined. He talks and behaves the way that pop culture of the era told us that developmentally disabled children acted, and man, it's... this is hard to watch. Like, not in a good tearjerker way, more in a yikes way. But critics loved it, and they loved him. He even did some research for the role, where he spent a weekend at a home for disabled kids. You gotta give him some credit for that. He at least took the time to really understand what it's like to be one of these kids. No, wait, he was just there to nail down a voice and mannerisms for the character? Oh. But it's the 90s, and that's okay, because the Oscars loved this kind of movie at the time. Playing disabled was one of the most surefire ways to get nominated, and they really, really like when you do research. And even though Leo lost, I still believe this might be the most important Oscar ceremony he goes to, because this is where he discovers a crucial Oscar winner dichotomy. The year is 1994. The 66th Academy Awards are Leo's first, and he's nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He's up against Ralph Fiennes, John Malkovich, it doesn't matter. The only one who matters is the actor who ultimately won, Tommy Lee Jones. Jones is a veteran performer with over 30 years of acting under his belt, and yet this is only his second Oscar nomination, with his first coming 2 years prior. This man has worked hard, and even though The Fugitive is his biggest film yet, he's not even the main star of the movie. The movie itself isn't really an Oscar bait film, and the award isn't really for his performance. It's more of a career award, a way of saying, yeah, Ralph Fiennes' sadistic Nazi lieutenant in Schindler's List was probably a better role and a better performance, but you've been around longer and we all like you, so it's probably time you won an award. Leo watches as Marissa Tomei mispronounces his name,
Leonardo DiCaprio,
before calling up Tommy Lee to accept his award. He sees Tommy kiss his age-appropriate wife, put on his old man glasses, make a self-deprecating joke about baldness, and thank his more famous co-star Harrison Ford. And to 18-year-old Leo, this is like a terrifying visit from the ghost of stardom future. But across the aisle in Best Supporting Actress, there's Anna Paquin. She's 11 years old, and The Piano is her first professional acting role ever. She plays the daughter of Holly Hunter's mute pianist and serves as her interpreter as Mom struggles to woo Harvey Keitel while avoiding her abusive arranged husband Sam Neill in 1800s New Zealand. And that's an Oscar movie, alright? And while child roles are an uphill battle with the Academy, Anna Paquin does nearly all of Holly Hunter's speaking and does what every supporting character in an Oscar movie is supposed to do. She sits there and reacts as the lead suffers horribly. She wasn't expected to win, but she's charming and adorable and everyone loves her, just like Leo. But unlike Leo, she pulls an upset and actually wins, fast-tracking her directly to the same industry milestone as 108-year-old Tommy Lee Jones. And now Leo's got this idea in his head, as if an over-expository dream crew implanted it there. What if he could reach the highest achievement of acting in the world without slogging through a career of Hollywood handshakes and studio favors? And so he set off to become Anna Paquin, without realizing he was on his way to become Tommy Lee Jones. Leo's first loss doesn't sting very hard. He's young, his star power is beginning to skyrocket, and What's Eating Gilbert Grape was a box office flop, and it's very tough to win with a movie no one saw. You wouldn't penalize young up-and-comer and all-around great guy Matt Damon for not winning awards for Geronimo and American Legend, would you? Well, Leo's got a plan to remedy that. From this point on, with one Oscar nomination already in tow, he's gonna get a little pickier about his roles. He's looking to recapture that Gilbert Grape magic while refining his preferred type of role. He's exclusively looking for characters who are troubled, extremely smart and/or talented, mature for their age, and bonus point if it's based on a true story. And he's starting to turn down roles that don't fit this criteria. He's already said no to Hocus Pocus, and he's about to turn down playing Robin in Batman Forever when tragedy strikes. River Phoenix, acclaimed wonderkin turned young adult phenom and one of Leo's idols, whom he has just spent the day with, has died at 23 years old. A lot of parallels have been made between the career trajectories of these two young actors, and I won't go too much into that. But it's worth noting that the next two features were originally poised to be River Phoenix roles. The Basketball Diaries sees Leo as a talented writer/basketball player struggling with addiction who doesn't have time to deal with high school problems, based on a true story. The Quick and the Dead has Leo playing a troubled yet talented gunslinger who, despite his age, robs banks and shoots people. In Total Eclipse, Leo plays Arthur Rimbaud, a sadistic yet talented poet who dates and tortures the much older David Thewlis, based on a true story. Romeo plus Juliet, possibly related to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, has Leo playing a pompous and depressed pretty boy who is troubled by a forbidden relationship with a 13-year-old. He's talented at saying Shakespeare dialogue and having a gun. I don't know. In high school, they made us watch the 60s nipple version, so I never saw this one. And finally, in Marvin's Room, Leo plays a mentally unstable yet talented arsonist confined to a mental institution. Other than pumping up DiCaprio's star power, none of these really went anywhere. Marvin's Room was the most critically acclaimed of them, but not really for Leo. While he liked playing those types of roles, they had him somewhat confined. He could get leading roles, but they were for smaller films that didn't bring him critical acclaim. And if he wanted to be in studio films, he had to play supporting roles. What he needed was a larger film that he could truly lead and show off whatever it is that he's got. What he needed was Boogie Nights. Paul Thomas Anderson's flashy porn star epic was exactly what Leo needed to prove himself to be the serious young performer he wanted everyone to know he was. And I do believe had he taken this role, he would have been nominated for it. It's a really long film with a really long arc and really long other things, and it's exactly what you want for Oscars. But unfortunately, he had to turn down the role due to scheduling conflicts with a little film called Titanic. Stay tuned for part 2, where Leo's hopes fall apart like some kind of gigantic nautical metaphor.